ones are safe and healthy. Before proceeding with the session, I would like to thank on behalf of Indian Healthcare Leadership Forum and on behalf of this esteemed panelist, our COVID warriors for their extraordinary efforts during these uncertain times. At India Healthcare Leadership Forum, we foster collaborative exchange among top healthcare industry leaders globally. This is an incredible opportunity to network, share, and learn. This is an invaluable network built by and for senior leaders to drive innovative ideas, validate strategies, and solve critical leadership challenges through peer-to-peer collaboration. In the backdrop of the ongoing COVID-19 crisis, we are actively organizing knowledge sessions where some of the finest minds from across the world address some of the most pivotal questions for the benefit of the senior industry leaders. We thank you for the overwhelming support for this important initiative. In fact, when we started, we just thought that we will do one or two, but now there is so much of pressure that comes on us that we have to continue this whole journey. So I think we are very thankful to all of you. Your positive energy motivates us further to exceed expectations. And before we proceed further, there are few housekeeping announcements. We are expecting more than 500 plus participants across the globe. Some will be joining on Zoom platform, and some will be joining and watching it live on other platforms like YouTube and Facebook Live. In case you have any question, the Zoom participants can type the question on the chat option given below, choosing option all panelists and all participants. Otherwise, by default, only the option of all panelists will come. And the panelists will answer your question. If you have a specific question for any particular panelist, so please name that panelist. And rest of you watching on other platforms, you can send your questions on WhatsApp to our team, and then they will ensure that some of your questions get answered now. And we assure you that your balanced questions will be answered by our esteemed panelists in due course of time. So I think today the topic is very interesting and exciting. We all know that the pandemic has the impact of COVID-19 pandemic has been unprecedented, and this will change the way we used to work. So we have brought together a very esteemed panelists who are going to discuss, brainstorm, and share their insights on this important topic of future of work. And in my opinion, organizations must reimagine their work and the role of offices in creating safe, productive, and enjoyable jobs and lives for employees. So I take this opportunity to introduce our esteemed panelist. Our first panelist is Meenakshi Priyam, who will also be delivering the keynote address for the session. Meenakshi is currently is a very well-respected thought leader in the human resource space. She is currently the Chief Human Resource Officer for GSK in India, and she's also a business lead for the global GSK Global. She's an MBA from XLRI, and she has won many accolades for her achievements. She has also won from Business Today one of the top business executives award, and she was featured there. So she has incredible experience of not only India, but many geographies across the globe. And we are very thankful that she has taken out time and she is now with us. So thanks a lot, Meenakshi, and we look forward for your session. Now our next esteemed panelist, I would request Mr. Balaji. So Mr. Balaji again has incredible experience in the industry. He's currently with Vodafone as a senior director, Earlier, he was the managing director of Nokia, and he was also the managing director of Sony Mobile. And he's currently the chairman of SOCHAM, National Digital Communication Council. He's the vice president of Telecom Sector Skill Council and member of National Council of Apex Industry Chambers, CII, FICCI, SOCHAM, and All India Management Association. He was the president of Telecom Equipment Manufacturer Association, Northern Region chairman of the Telecom Export Promotion Council, and member of task forces set up by government on policy matters. He's an electronics engineer from IIT Roorkee, and he has also completed his MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. And I know him personally. He's a very humble leader. He is an epitome of humility, and with lot of insights. Whenever we interact with him, we got to learn so many new things. So we welcome Balaji, and thanks for taking out time for our network and community. So I take this opportunity to also now welcome Sakshi Jeti, who is our next panelist. And Sakshi is again a senior industry leader. She has almost 2 decades plus experience in various leadership roles across the industry. She has worked for Fortis, Gangaram, Nova, and many other chain of hospitals in various senior leadership roles. And most importantly, she has recently won the prestigious Woman Icon of the Year 2019 by Economic Times Award, and Healthcare Leader of the Year by Times Now. So we are really, I think we appreciate that she has taken out time and she's with us on this panel, and we welcome Sakshi on this panel. Our next panelist is Mr. Farath. Mr. Farath again has an incredible experience of almost 3 decades, and he has worked across many industries, many companies like GSK, Johnson & Johnson, Kapila, and now he is currently the group head HR of Mankind. Extremely, very, very, I think, important points that he makes. I have been fortunate to be with him on one of the panel recently, and the kind of thinking that he has, I think it is very important for all the senior leaders who are attending today to learn from his wisdom, and he will share his insights on this important topic. Now I take this opportunity to welcome Manu Kapila. Manu Kapila is again a very senior leader from Fortis Healthcare. He has again spent more than 2 decades in the industry, and he's running a very important function of corporate relations. And I think in this current scenario, a lot of leaders who are watching this program will agree that the corporate affairs function in healthcare particularly is extremely important. When you are seeing this massive changes happening, the price regulation coming in, there is a lack of, there is a distrust which has started emerging between the various stakeholders, and a lot of changes which are happening. I think this is a very important role that he is doing for a very important chain of hospitals in India. So we welcome Manu to our panel. And with this, I'll also now come to our moderator of the session, which is Papia. So Papia Banerjee is again a thought leader in the HR space. She is currently the Chief Learning Officer and HR Head Market Operations for Airtel. And she has been a thought leader across various other industries, IT, ITS, financial services, telecom, in various leadership capacities she has been working. And she does a lot of work on human psychology. She has interest in art and science and capability development. And particularly, she's also interested in the neuroscience for brain capacity enhancement, education, and transformation. And I don't think there would have been any other good moderator than Papia. So that is the reason I resigned from my moderatorship and I passed it on to Papia. So thanks a lot, Papia, for taking on this role. And I request you to please take it from here. Thank you a lot.
Thanks, Gaurav. So feel both humbled and excited to be part of the webinar today. And extremely good set of a mix in the panel and the complete involvement of the audience. So I would actually like to start with thanking you for registering for this webinar, also giving us lots of questions for to dwell into and think of how do we prepare the session so that it addresses at least some of the questions. I know all of us are thinking at the moment in our mind that future, what is it about future of work? Future seems to be very very unpredictable.
Huh?
But at the same time, I do believe
Yeah.
that
For a bad headache
what we
also.
do now, each step that we take, actually we create something today for the future tomorrow. So let's just see how this has been unfolding for us, right? So for me, I think COVID actually hit me on 16th March, although COVID cases have started coming in from January, you know. It is the 16th March where the first case of possible COVID situation was reported in Airtel Mumbai. And that is where I think as an organization, we went into a jiffy. Before that, COVID was only stories and it became just real. And we worked as an organization, and from 18th March we took a decision of going working from home. So last 4 year experience 4 months experience has been very very different. At a personal level, if I have to capture it, one big experience was that your expenditures come down significantly, right? Because you are not shopping anymore, you are not eating out anymore, you are not going for long travels, you are not going traveling a lot. So that's the piece which gives you relief. The second piece was somewhere in the crisis, managing the whole work and shifting in the ways of working for people where you are making it, work from home, along with the daily stuff that you have been doing at work. It has actually allowed me to get in touch with my superpower. And my superpower that I was not aware of, that, when you are doing work, when you're doing home, when you're managing a kid, you are capable of managing it all. And I realized that I can just stretch and manage it all and still have the energy to deal with things that I love. And I don't think any other scenario I have really been in touch with that superpower of mine, which was the max stretch and all managed calmly. The third piece which became very real for me was in this time of stress, the things that are important to you. So for me, my family is very important, and I got to spend some real quality time with my family. And some of the passions I had forgotten that I was passionate about. I love cooking, but I had not tried it for very, very long. Now, this time there was no option but to cook, and I realized that, oh wow, I'm really great at it. So, personal level, there were a lot of changes that was, and COVID brought lots of learning. If I have to look at from the organizational perspective, I think the thing that stands out, we at Airtel never thought or never could imagine that we would have everybody working from home, right? We are a field operations people, and everybody is very, very bound to come to office. We didn't had policies around working from home or digital enablement to work from home. But within a couple of weeks, we had enabled everybody to be working from home, even our call center execs, right? And that was a massive change. I think that digital enablement, if it was not a COVID kind of exigency, would have taken years, but it took just 2 weeks to transform the organization to operate from home. The second piece that stands out for me as an organization is, I think healthcare and safety became the prime and most important things in everybody's mind. Almost every leader, almost every function was working on BCP and trying to ensure that everybody who is working is safe. And the safety went much beyond the employees. It went to our partner employees and the families of the employees. We had almost a parallel running healthcare system that came in. That is about the physical safety. The other part of it we realized, which was a very, very new kind of animal for me, which was general anxiety, which was very, very high in employees, right? And we actually experienced highest number of connect sessions that we as leaders did, highest consumption of e-learning programs, highest consumption of any kind of a healthcare related or healthy living related contests, webinars and other things. They gave an opportunity to keep on maintaining the connector and empathy with the employees. The third piece, which was again which came into play, was purpose. I'm sure you understand, like the way we have been talking about COVID warriors, we actually are essential services as telecom, and Balaji will agree with me. And because it is a telecom and essential service, we needed to be in the field. We needed to make the things available to all our customers. And that is where we took a call and we built the whole services for the service of the nation, for the service of the citizens, for the service of the customer. And I think that resonated very strongly with our employees when they were really going out in the field. They were going to solve customer problems. They were going out to provide recharges, provide SIMs, provide livelihood to so many retailers. Those are associated with it. So that is from the organization perspective. And the last one from organization perspective is actually building the customer to the core. I think we were pushed because when one of the things that happens with the organizations when we have been into business for very long, that there is a kind of a relationship that is already formed with customers, and there are ways of working and you have been dealing with it. You don't need to really think of it very differently. But this situation really pushed us to think very, very differently about fulfilling the requirement of customers. And we were so innovative, and that too very, very quick innovations, right? We actually, I don't know how many of you have looked at, we actually allowed the friends to do recharge for you, for the people who do not have access to 4G phones. And you can also earn for the recharge, every recharge that you are doing. Every grocery store was given SIMs so that it can be made available. We actually tied up with ATMs so that people get the services. And for all the fault repair, we had video counseling where the people can do the fault repairs on their own. Again, a transformation that could have taken months to come. I think we were able to sort it out in the week. And in terms of a leadership, I think my experience is that I don't think ever before we needed a purpose to be so strong as we do now, because that is the only piece that can keep the whole team bonded and move forward. And in our case, I have seen that coming to play again and again and again. And every employee that I have spoken to and who has been in the field, and I say, karna to padega hi na, because we are in the service of the nation. To get that point, it has been really humbling experience that people are taking a risk because they think that they are in the service of a nation. And the second part has been the empathy and the connect. Because everybody is going through this situation together, and you realize that people are not going to work because of money, people are not going to work because of the jobs they have, people. So what is it that brings or makes it a family? And we saw a lot of leaders actually who managed to keep the teams together, who managed to empathize, extend all the help and support that the teams and the families required. We have the teams coming back, that's giving us the results. And I think COVID is going to be there for some time now. It's not disappearing, and we have to see how do we build based on our own learning and experiences that we learn to live with COVID and then deliver the promise. I'll now invite Meenakshi to share with us specifically for pharma, that how has it been for the people and leadership imperative.
Thank you, Kapila. Firstly, thank you everybody who has joined in, and thank you Gaurav and an esteemed set of panelists here. Really, really happy to be here, talking to all of you, and being in all of your company. Yeah, I think it's been. I was smiling away as I was listening to Papia, and I remember when COVID came, right? Isn't it always felt quite distant? We were listening about COVID, and it was in China and in other countries, but it felt quite distant. And I remember actually that I was going to fly out to London, and last minute I didn't board the plane, and thank God, because otherwise I don't know when I would have come back into the country. Yeah, and things changed so rapidly, and I think it's human resilience, that how some of it looks like a very distant past, though it was in March and mid-March. Because of so many things that have happened since March to now, right? And I think as I was listening and thinking about this session, I went on to my journey of what has happened really since mid-March to today, and what did life and the situation throw at us. So there was I remember on 16th March, if I'm not mistaken, the health minister of Maharashtra had called some of us, the CHROs and the physicians and some of the hospitals, to say, if this was to happen, what are we going to do, and also understand how is the organization going to be working, supporting the government, supporting the purpose that we serve, but also the employees. And all of us, while we were there, we actually didn't know how it will evolve, right? Because things were evolving at such a rapid pace. We gave some advice. We connected as a group of CHROs from across sectors to say how we can come and support our country, how we can support employees, what's the best thing to do. But honestly, one thing that became clear is there was no playbook. And very rarely in times that we have seen in last several decades, that you are faced with a situation where there's no playbook per se. There's no other country, company. You have to go way back in the history when influenza came or something like that to sort of understand how to deal with a pandemic, right? So I think that was a moment where I think a few things happened, right? And I will use the same framework of organization, leadership, and then employee impact, right? Because I think that's how it flows. As the pandemic happened, it happened to and impacted everybody, right? So typically when something happens, an external factor changes, environment changes happen, regulatory changes happen, you get into an organizational M&A or anything else, right? Your business gets disrupted. It's pretty much one or two stakeholders that get impacted, and you have to figure out a model that works then in a more agile environment. Here you were in a situation where everybody got impacted. So you were in a situation where your country was impacted, the world was impacted, the customers were impacted, the employees were impacted, you personally were impacted, and you had to deal with the situation in a very, very fast manner, because for many organizations like pharma specifically, right, you do serve through the medicines, and the medicines have to reach your patients. And what do you do, and how do you enable that to happen as essential service, became a big question mark. So I think a few things happened. I think one is the doctors and the regular model of pharma, that reps will go and visit the doctors and visit the pharmacy, sort of came to a standstill, at least in the first few months, because hospitals issued guidelines. Doctors said, no, we don't want reps to come. And also ethically and responsibly, we said, at this point in time, we don't necessarily want to distract the doctors that are needed. So we started thinking about what's really our role. How do we still deliver for our patients? How do we continue to look out for our employee safety? So essentially, we had to go deeply into 2 to 3 things. I think one, completely echo with what I think Papia mentioned a couple of times. I think in a time like this, when you don't have a playbook and there's not a written document that you can go to, or a case study, your North Star, your purpose and vision becomes extremely important, because that becomes your North Star for taking decisions, right? Because they're conflicting views. So what do you do? And that's when you say, why do we exist? What do we exist for? And what defines us as an organization? Yeah. So I think that that plays a very, very important part. And for us, we first started, and there were a group of us called Issues Management Team, IMTs. I'm sure many of you are aware of and have these issues management teams who come together every day solving for the crisis that we went in. We set out the principles that were aligned to our purpose, right? Which was clearly articulated that, first was serving the patients. The second was employees were extremely critical and important to us. And it was outlined in our vision and purpose in terms of, so the employee safety was extremely critical for us. So looking at these two, then what drove us is that, and I think an implication on an organization was that I think 2 to 3 things helped GSK a lot. And I think these also helped based on my peer learning with CHROs of different companies in India. I have heard is that what helped is companies which had an agile culture naturally did much better, which meant people who are easy to break their silos and collaborate and come together to find solutions. Companies which were digitally agile, right, and had adopted digital and had a digital maturity were seen to be much more ahead. People who were naturally invested in culture and engagement seem to have come around really quickly. So clearly, these things enabled us a great deal. So as a company, apart from the purpose and the culture, we've been driven by this entire piece of one thinking. And nothing like crisis to really test, either test collaboration or also accelerate collaboration. So I saw beautifully actually different functions coming together in creating really, really quick solution, all aligned to the purpose of serving patients. And that also included things like union, right? So we have large workforce which is unionized, both in our factories and in sales. And there was a dialogue of what do we stand for? And that purpose and collaboration helped break all silos to start looking at delivering for our patients really, and start our operations in our manufacturing sites. And after a few months, actually, I think we were the first multinational company that was out in the field meeting the pharmacies, ensuring pharmacies were stocked up, retailers were stocked up, but also where doctors were meeting in green zones, the doctors were met. The other thing that I think, like I said, so the digital maturity really helped us. So I think we had everybody on laptops and iPads for years together. So everybody was very easy on all formats, right? Whether it's MS Teams, whether it was Skype, we had more platforms than possibly we ever used, and we didn't use because it's very cultural in terms of shifting mindset of using tools, but because we had the infrastructure maturity and we started pushing the cultural agility to adapt to this, that helped us a great deal. So alignment to purpose, agility and collaboration, maturity in terms of infrastructure, and the fourth piece is really on very not getting sort of fussed by rules and inflexibility. I think innovation and experimentation became much faster in the organization to start adapting to the model. Because at the end of the day, it's also about sustainability, right? There started a question of how do you sustain in the short term, because revenue started getting impacted. So organizations had to really look at multiple pieces of, do I have a clear mission and purpose? And do I have a large workforce which is aligned to that? That enables us to stay agile, be collaborative. And then do I have the infrastructure to support this new environment, right? Which was really a digital infrastructure. And the fourth piece out of all of it is, how do I continue to have a culture of experimentation much faster than I have had before? So I think these were the 4 key pieces, and there are a few others, but I'll stay with these 4. That meant there were different leadership expectation. Like I said, there was no leadership playbook. I think the question was, as a leader, how much? I think communication became front and center in the organization, because as you suddenly lock down, employees who were 5,000 in numbers out in the field today are sitting at home. And for many other roles like mine, if you're in HR, you can still continue to work on your pieces. But what do you do for the guy whose job was to go and meet let's say 10 to 11 doctors and retailers and pharmacists. What does he do? So I think communication in terms of what is happening, what we are dealing with, and how will we go about became extremely front and center in leadership role. I think second that became extremely and communication included purpose, vision, culture, what's our aim and ambition, how are we dealing with the situation, so that your employees continue to stay engaged and understanding and actually even more cohesive in a distributed remote working environment. So that was one. We used tools like regular channels, of course, which is tools like this, either the video connects, the telephonic connects, but we also have an internal social media platform called Workplace. So we leverage Workplace a great deal, not just from top down, but we encouraged a lot of peer-to-peer interactions. We encouraged a lot of bottom-up interaction. We had tons of video messages, short snippets, chats, blogs going on. So communication from a leadership behavior perspective became extremely important in driving the vision and the mission. The second piece that became extremely important was looking at and really closely monitoring resilience in the organization and being a role model of it. And resilience has multiple aspects to it, right? Resilience has an aspect of physical well-being, mental well-being, emotional well-being, and whether your employees are able to get their energy sources, because we realized that people started facing issues that they had never faced. So I think very much echoing with Papia, right? You heard anxiety pieces, but also natural working became extremely difficult, because otherwise you would meet and have a cup of coffee or meet at a water filter, and everything that you could solve in 5-minute conversation became a 30-minute meeting, right? And building trust in a remote environment also became a significant issue. So from a leadership standpoint, how do you sort of continue to role model resilience, role model the right behavior, and enable employees became extremely, extremely important. What also became important is being very transparent. So if there was going to be a change, and let's face it, as in all the organizations, many of us have had to make business model changes because at the end of the day, either your cash flows have been impacted or performance have been impacted, and you need to do something about it. The question was, can you do it with transparency? Can you do it by upholding your values, mission, and purpose still? And what is the right way of dealing with the change that everybody was facing? So I think that became extremely, extremely important. And I think that's a piece on empathy from a leadership level. So I would say empathy, connectedness, agility, and role modeling from a leadership level became extremely, extremely important. And then if you start thinking of employees, there were different implications for employees. Lead indicators. So every time when you have sales, right? So if sales is happening, it's easy because it's a lag indicator. But what do you do in a situation where the guy is not even able to meet and do his calls? So your lead indicators became extremely important. It was easy for us because we as a company have always focused on lead indicators. Actually, our sales guys don't have sales targets. So we spent a lot of time in building up, skill, knowledge, employability of our employees. The second piece became enabling them to adjust to this new life. Enabling them. I know Papia enjoys cooking, so she found a really positive story about being at home. But I know of people who struggled to cook and take care of children and manage elderly parents, and at the same time be logged on to work and deal with the situation they were in. So I think people needed beyond the webinar sessions and I often say frameworks and tools to sort of manage. They actually wanted to listen to some real stories of how others are dealing with it and feel heard and listen to that. No, this is happening with others and this is how they are dealing with it. So I think some of that interaction, especially because they were so remote, creating connectedness for employees became extremely important. So instead of just running a webinar, which we also did on health and well-being, we actually ran a week-long sort of campaign, right? Where employees actually stepped up and became lead and champions of either physical well-being, mental well-being, started sharing tips, started sharing pictures, videos, what they were doing for the community, what gave them energy. So I think that that was extremely critical. I think the second piece was because employee safety was so key and serving patients was so important. We had to say, how do we do both? How do we send a person in a really high risk zone because it's a hospital or a pharmacy, and still manage safety and well-being with an equal fervor? And so we took a lot of measures, and we have a fantastic, I think we were one of the first ones to come up with the employee guidelines and safety. But apart from that, we doubled our insurance cover for our employees. So we gave them comfort on benefits. We invested in sort of enabling them to say, if you don't take your leave this year, because we have to really be out there and serving patients, you will not lose out on that. Actually, you can take it in the first quarter of next year. Actually encouraging people to take leave when they can, and sort of managing their, because sometimes people say I'm home, and there was never no laptop time. So I think some of that from an employee perspective became very important. For us, we always had work from home policy, but we never knew what to do with it for field staff. So I think some of that in terms of policy decisions became extremely important from an employee perspective. And yeah, so that's what and I think there's connectedness to, if you see, purpose, communication, resilience, transparency, and agility in the organization. Because forget about work from home, actually, it's not work from home. Today, it's work from anywhere. So now, earlier, people used to say, oh, the role is based here. And now people say, oh, but this talent is not based here. And now, earlier, people would never even entertain a dialogue. And now we say, but why do you need the talent to be here? Because any which ways, see, it's working beautifully in this way. So in certain roles, I think the paradigm of future of workforce is changing significantly and will continue to change. There are many positives to it, but there are also many other pieces to it, right? So I think work from anywhere will become a reality. It will open up talent pools that were not tapped earlier. I expect more diversity and women to enter workforce because of what behavior change has happened with this. I also expect much better collaboration across, not just within the company, but across the industry happening, because I think nothing like crisis to accelerate that pathway. But I also see more and more important emphasis on different ways of engaging people, because traditional ways do not work. I also see newer, nothing brings up disruption more than a crisis, because I think more innovations will come in pandemic than possibly earlier. And I think organizations can be ready for much more disruptions coming their way. So how will the big, really large ones become and stay agile, and is extremely important. Working together and as a ecosystem was always important, but even today even more. And I'm sure Balaji will share a lot more about how industry associations now working with the government can play a role. And we saw that as a very, very good role in terms of supporting our next step and way forward, whether it was from an API perspective that pharma industry was struggling on. So having an industry voice and cross company collaboration will become very important. So I know I'm possibly on time, but those were my thoughts. That's my reflection. And yeah, look forward to listening the other esteemed panelist members. So does this go back to Papia now?
Thanks, Meenakshi. Thanks for really giving us insights into how you went about dealing with these situations, and how it has, like most of the time we do not talk about the positives that it has brought in terms of our agility, in terms of innovation, in terms of connectedness with the employees and being almost to one with it. So thank you for your insights. And now let's hear Balaji. In terms of the overall across the country, what are you hearing? What are the trends that you are seeing? What's going to happen to the businesses? And more importantly, how does it impact the leadership? Balaji, over to you.
Thank you so much, Papia. I think you and Meenakshi have actually set the stage for so much to be. You've given such wonderful insights on a personal, professional, leadership and organization level. The job becomes easy. I saw a few questions from the wonderful delegates who've been sending very insightful questions and, edging the conversation forward. And I remember the conversation you and I and Gaurav and others had. he said, touch a little bit on the macro picture before you get down to specifics on leadership challenges. So I guess a couple of things that I'll start to talk about global India. I won't take too long. I'll try to be brief. But fundamentally, I think we all know that this pandemic is actually a societal crisis, right? It frankly is threatening lives, livelihoods, and the well-being of our global community in a manner that has not been felt since 1918. Obviously, it is being further, should I say, threatened by geopolitical tensions. And whether it's nations or whether it's leaders, they are trying to recast the economic power equations. Okay, so whether it's global trade, whether it's supply chains, whether it's the race to find vaccines, whether it's for securing medical supplies for their citizens, I think in one hand, collaboration is also happening. At the same time, there are fault lines as well. So I'm being very candid about it because you guys read it. You are very enlightened leaders, all of you as panelists and delegates. So it is there for everybody to see. There are collaborations on the face of it, but there are huge fault lines. And so now that was, a little bit hidden when the lockdown was going on. But as the restart to the economy started, on one hand, the government has to deal with disease progression, which is what they are trying to manage. Because for them, it's saying, okay, let me just handle this because this is going to be the most super critical thing for us. And in order to let the rest of it to be taken care by the industry, because industry, if you believe in, should I say, compassionate capitalism, and that's a conversation that is a topic by itself. But if you believe in that philosophy, then you say, okay, that the industry will take care of the rest. So all government is saying, let me take care of the health and the progression and so on and the vulnerable people. And the bulk of the thing has to be, restart has to be then driven by the industry. Therefore, the role of industry world over has become extremely important, and their responsibility has gone up, and their need to have some kind of a moral compass and a moral responsibility has become that much higher. And so if you look at country by country, the strategies are evolving from national to regional or local, lockdowns. And those are just short bursts, then trying to make sure that, some amount of normalcy comes in. Now, clearly what it's meant is that certain sectors have, been impacted more than the others. To say that nobody's impacted is wrong. Relative impact has been different, but everybody has been impacted, because even those that you say typically, oh, pharma industry, great, look at the stock markets, and that is an indication of how they're going, or the FMCG. But frankly, they've taken a tremendous amount of hit when it comes to supply constraints. And you guys in the health industry definitely know it. And I speak to a lot of colleagues in other sectors. So now that's one dimension. And the second dimension of a global platform is the fact that the movement to offline and online has happened in a manner never thought possible before. And so if you look at the Indian situation, India, again, from a health point of view, the 2 million mark was a massive number, right? So suddenly, from nowhere, we've become number 3 after US and Brazil. And yesterday's headline or today's headline was about the highest in a month with 60-odd thousand or a week or whatever, just for the day. Sorry, I'm losing track of time. It's a day. 60,000 plus in a day is a big number. That's what mortality levels are low for whatever reason. You guys are the experts. I'm just kind of being a narrator in terms of what I see. And clearly, the gradual but definitive unlock that has started has started to have, at least on the livelihoods part, a positive spin-off. The opportunity for India with the geopolitical tensions to be an alternative to China is there. Will we get there or not? Again, a different topic altogether. But we do at least see the government trying its best by putting a stake on the ground, talking about the 4 L's of labor, land, liquidity, and laws, right? So they are kind of doing the thing they got to do. There are some signs of recovery in industrial activities. If you look at the PMI index, that's gone up. If you look at freight movement, e-way bills, if those are any indicators, then that's great. UPI transactions going up seems to indicate a positive trend. If you look at the services, they were less impacted than merchandise. And the slow recovery, even if it's for imports and exports, is a positive trend. Are there concerns? Surely there are. I mean, imagine in just a matter of 2 months, we've actually reached the full year 55% fiscal deficit target. That's a big thing, right? But then, as Papia said, and so did Meenakshi, there are no playbooks. So what? All right, so 55% in 2 months, you should be panicking. But frankly, no, because lives and livelihoods need to be sorted out. And unless you can tackle the here and now with no playbook, you don't address the longer term in any case, because there is no long term if you don't take care of the short term. So those are issues that we, I guess, are seeing one dimension. And the second, of course, is the contraction demand. I think, Papia, the way you said, expenses are less. But on a broader basis, it does also mean that consumer sentiment is muted. Okay, let's face it. Whether it's your organization or mine, we had a huge spurt in demand, but we earned less as organizations. So the revenue pie is shrinking. So all of these, in a way, I would say, are opportunities and threats for India. If I look at from macro point of view, the good news is the government is listening. The good news is industries, by and large, are behaving in a responsible manner. The engagement and dialogue between industry and the government has been very positive. We've had horror stories. Okay, we had people who were, risking their lives in order to be there to maintain essential services as telecoms. We had people that were beaten black and blue, whether they were our employees or distributed employees, did not matter. But we had to basically then reach out to state governments and the law enforcement agencies to ensure that there was a system put in place so that people could do what they were supposed to do to keep networks up and running and not beaten up because they were just flouting a curfew on movement, right? So those issues are behind. Now the hard work really starts of kickstarting the economy. Now, I think that's from an overall macro point of view. I'll just touch upon a few things that I believe are important for us as leaders to keep in mind, which was the second part of your question, Papia. So you said impact on industries and companies. The fact is every industry is impacted one way or the other by the external environment. Yeah. But the fact is that there will be winners. And unfortunately, there'll also be people that will be less successful than the winners because the winners are going to differentiate themselves from other players by doing a few things, some of which has been extremely critically touched upon by Meenakshi as well as by Papia. But I'll just divide it into two parts. I've explained the macro and therefore what can be the business response. And I'll come to the cultural aspects, which I don't think I can do better than the ladies, but I'll just try to capture a few things that I thought works well. So one is from a business point of view, whether we like it or not, all leaders and the leadership team needs to take an extremely integrated perspective on the health and medical progression, on the government responses, on societal reactions. You have to be knowing what the societal reactions are. And at the same time, understanding the implications of all of these to your business or your sector. Very, very critical. Number two, you have to start to prepare your organization to have greater systemic resilience, to absorb shocks, to absorb stress, and still recover critical functionality and thrive in these altered circumstances. Because this is not a sprint that we thought it would be initially going in. It is a marathon. In a marathon, it's extremely important to build that kind of a systemic resilience to absorb stress, but at the same time kind of recover the critical functionality. That's really what you could do. Third, I think referred earlier by both the panelists and the moderator, is the need for putting customer at the center of what we do, and therefore the need for developing extremely advanced analytic capability, because the data movement is going to be now high frequency, literally, changing dramatically day by day, and therefore for us to shift demand, to sense demand shifts or consumer sentiments becomes extremely important. Fourth, it is extremely critical to have an omni-channel capability for businesses, no matter what industry they are in. And therefore, at the same time, they need to invest in personalization and digital sales and marketing. That is an absolute given because 18 months is almost a lifetime for most sectors and That's what's going to happen. And another point which to me is important is about using the power of data and technology to develop potential scenarios. And these scenarios have to take into account shifts in demand and structural shifts. Are some behaviors that we took for granted for decades going to change in a matter of quarters? If that's going to be there, how will we react? We don't know whether it'll play out or not. But if you don't start to think about those scenarios and plan for it, I don't think there's any, you would be always struggling from one problem to another. And the last piece is to make sure that you use the opportunity to reskill existing workforce and also at the same time hire for the future. I mean, that is extremely critical. If you didn't do that, you've lost an opportunity. I've just put 5 or 6 of these points because as leaders in various organizations, you will realize that these are extremely important things as leaders or leadership team that you need to have in order to, come ahead and bring your organization ahead in the changing, in the new normal, so to say. Now, on the people side, so articulated well was the societal purpose or the social contribution, which binds organizations and teams to a goal that is larger than ourselves. Clearly, super critical. The need for leaders to convey a compelling narrative. Frankly, even the people listening to you understand you don't have the solutions. You don't have all the answers. Yeah, but they're looking for that beacon of hope, saying, you know what, this guy's honest. The guy's at least telling us what we can do for the next week, for the next 2 weeks, and the month after, and so on. They just need to see that authenticity come through in saying, guys, this is a long haul. Let's not get overworked. Let's not get overstressed. Let's deal with it day by day, week by week, and month by month. And then we'll see how we land on the other side. And all the things that I spoke about, resilience and shock and all that stuff, are things that you do in a leadership team in smaller groups. So you can discuss those broader issues and only make sure that you prepare the organization to make that direction and make that shift, right? So while you inspire teams in these unpredictable times, it is extremely important to make sure that you have to understand that as you build for the future, you get the timing right. Because you've got to pace yourself and the organization for that change. And therefore, the inspiration that you provide to your team, the motivation that you give for the larger purpose, the engagement you do with them helps you to co-create the future organization. I guarantee you, each and every one of your employees and your teams will come back and tell you how it can be a better tomorrow. They'll tell you how the workplace can be made safer, how you can drive efficiencies. They'll come back and tell you what they want, right? And so if you think organized design has to be the purview of leaders, yes, to a certain extent, but not necessarily. Open it out to your employees. You'll see the ideas coming from them. Make sure then you have serious debate and discussion around it and figure out what works best for your organization and for your future needs, right? And so it's not the same solution for a call center worker or a data scientist. You might just assume that call center worker, acha, productivity achhi hogi, and now he's not going and indulging in coffee shop banter and so on. Oh, this data scientist now, he's got all the time in the world. He just needs his computer to work on. The fact is, he or she is a human being too, and they need that social engagement. So even if you choose to do the extreme, like I heard TCS say 95, maybe the thing of saying 95% of my workforce will work from home in 2025 was a broader vision. They'll probably cut back to 70, 75, and it's guaranteed that even those 95% of people, they will find ways for them to engage, meet socially, even if it's in small teams and neighborhoods, because if they did not do it, the essence of what organizations are, the essence of what human beings are, will be lost forever. And that's not going to happen. Whether we like it or don't like it, it's going to happen for sure. One last point that I will say, which is critical from a leadership point of view, is that, or maybe two. One is, as I said, when you prepare for the future, you realize that your organization is now unfrozen forever. Yeah. Now, culture defeats strategy every time is an old saying, right? Therefore, you can either end up having the unfrozen organization freeze exactly the same way that it was before we went into lockdown, or say, no, there's an opportunity for us now to, refreeze it in a manner which is more appropriate for the future. That's number one, which is a way to kind of deliver huge value for all stakeholders, your customers, your employees, yourself, your shareholders, and everybody else. And the last part is, for God's sake, give some time to yourself. I love the way Papia said I could connect with my superpower, or about the cooking passion, or what Meenakshi said, it can also lead to other stresses in God, I can't cook for nuts. Yeah, that's okay. But whichever way you look at it, you are not superhuman as much as you think you are. In the end, you will feel days that you're absolutely pooped. Take the half a day, go to sleep. Don't worry about, having, missed an important Zoom call, or not responding in 20 minutes, if that's the norm that you set for yourself. Right? So pace yourself for the marathon. Take care of your own mental and physical wellness, because when you are good, the world around you looks good. So with that, I'd just like to hand it back to Kapila yourself.
Thanks, Balaji. Thank you so much. And what I really liked in terms of a theme, while we are saying that there is no playbook, but I think for each one of us, there is an interpretation of the context, interpretation of the organization that we are in. And it is on us that how are we going to turn it around, right? While there are lots of questions of what organizations are going to do, but I think there is a lot on us, right, that we can. And one of the pieces which is standing is also about learning agility, learning to be useful in this digital era, learning to be able to reskill ourselves, learning to be adjust to what we call a new normal, or using, Balaji, your term of saying that now it is unfrozen. How do I want to freeze? And if I don't want to freeze, then what the new form will look like, right? So I think it is a beautiful opportunity for us to do our self-discovery, and learning agility again, comes in my mind, is going to play a very, very critical role. So thanks for your insights, Balaji. I learned a lot. And I look forward to continuing the conversations over there, in some form. And I would now request Farhat to, share his experience of managing large organizations, complete operations, and, like the kind of steps mankind have taken. The conversations were really, really intriguing in terms of the steps and how they have managed the whole safety piece. So really getting into details of that. So Farhat, over to you.
Thank you, Papia, and thank you so much, the Leadership Forum of Healthcare, for inviting this session. And I was really hearing this, Meenakshi and Balaji and you also. So I was thinking that what should I speak now? Most of the points are already been covered. And nowadays, this kind of webinars and webcasts is very common here and there. So I was thinking that how a leader should perform in this crisis, when this kind of disruption is there. So we are focusing because of the media and because of the information age, but it has been there in many organizations when the organization is not performing as per their objectives and goals, and the same kind of situation they may face there also. But it was said by the Peter Drucker a long time back that the time will come, the world will have the technology, e-commerce and everywhere. But the most important commodity will be the human. And it is proven today also that the employee is the first preference for the company. Many times it has been said by the organizational behavior and the consultants also to focus on their development and focus on their safety and all. But very few organizations, I would say all progressive organizations, successful organizations, they used to focus on employees' well-being and all. But now nature has given a direction now. The leadership is controlled by nature now. And now nature is asking us to speed up and put some process and system and formats, technology, advancement, digitality, whatever you want. We are basically controlled by the nature, and the leadership is controlled by the nature. Now, who will be the successful in this kind of crisis or disruption? Either leaders will be only the answer. And that is the advantage we have at Mankind. Mankind is a very unique company with respect to the market. Presently, market is degrowing. Many organizations are showing degrowth, but Mankind is showing good growth in all the therapeutic areas. And the reason is this: we are well connected with our customer, whether it is internal or external, and that is the proactive approach we always keep. And when this crisis started, and the same kind of mind and mindset by our leaders like Mr. Rajiv Juneja and Mr. Arun Juneja and all the leaders, they cascaded the same thought process down the line, even managing 30 plants all across the country and without any disruption, without any single day that every day we are in operation. And then we have a strong field force also, almost 14,000. So it is a great challenge for a company like Mankind, because when you are showing growth and you are maintaining leadership in many areas, and then you have this kind of disruption and crisis, then it is a more responsibility. It is not only the operation and the function and belong to essential commodities. Mankind has shown a new way also for the social responsibility also. We are participating with full-hearted and all the areas where the government is looking for, or the society is looking for some kind of support. So that's why it is a total. Then I think there's a mix-up of total 4 dimensions, which has been said by the nature, that we have heart, and God has given heart to love only, nothing else. And God has given mind to learn something. That's why technology and digital mind should be there. And then we have a body also to live, and the spirit to leave the legacy. I think all others panelists who were talking about the spirituality, and even you, Papi, also you were talking about the spirituality in this period. It is true that if you want to leave the legacy, and if you want to live in this market where the disruption is there, crisis is there, I think we need leaders who can maintain all these 4 human dimensions: mind, heart, and body, and spirit, So this is the requirement at the moment in crisis of the leaders in the companies who are focusing on these 4 human dimensions and retaining people, retaining talents, and retaining culture and agility. I think they will be successful. Of course, nobody was prepared for this kind of disruption or crisis, but still, if you see the total all across the world, the market, you will find many companies are performing well, including Mankind. The reason is this: they are the mentally prepared, and they are the proactive. So if you are prepared, whether it is a Corona, COVID, or any other challenge, because if you take the countries like Japan and Germany, Japan is a classic example that always they have some issues with respect to the calamities and even the Second World War also. But they apply this principle that they are always prepared, and this is the only learning in COVID for Indian industry, that we should be prepared all the time, and we should focus on agility, learning agility, technology. We should focus on our employees, and most important, the leadership is very important. The leader should know that what they are and what they want to do, and what are their priorities, what are the timelines, and what are the accountabilities they have, and how to perform. This is more important, and it is all culture of the organization, and only the leaders are responsible. So I think this is from my side, Papaya, and thank you.
Thanks, Farhad. I think what you guys have done is really commendable. And I think Balaji was speaking about compassionate capitalism, which sounds very nice. In some form, we are seeing, it is really precious that in some form we are seeing that it is getting practiced, and organizations have at least started thinking about it, right? So thanks, Farhad, for your insights. And I will next go with Sakshi, because then it will be business and HR and others coming together. So Sakshi, actually, you have been in the health services industry for very long. So it will be wonderful to really hear from you in terms of what are the trends that you are seeing. And also, I think our delegates have lots of questions around what are the ways of working or changes that they can expect in HR. And one crucial question, I think, is everybody's mind, that what will happen to the employment scene. And would love to hear from you on that.
Thank you. And at the onset, I would like to thank Papia, Mr. Gaurav, IHLF, and my esteemed co-panelists for inviting me to share my views. I think everybody has been talking about, and we have all been experiencing the global recession induced by COVID-19 and the fundamental changes which it has brought in, the change in the way we work, the change in the way we have socialized. And I think it will continue for some times and many years which are coming. But having said that, as a learning from our past, every recession has presented numerous challenges for every country, making it difficult for industries to survive and thrive. But they have also ushered an era of opportunities for new age industries. So it is not gloom and doom. Yes, we are seeing a lot of challenges now, but what I expect and what, as per my understanding, COVID-19 crisis will also be a catalyst to unprecedented changes in every industry. 75 million to 375 million people globally may need to switch occupational categories and they need to learn new skills. So training will be a very important perspective. Every industry will be forced to reform and restructure in order to transform into the new realities that will emerge. According to me, the following three factors will lead to transformation. As Meenakshi also said, agility. Agile organization will use early insights. They will realign policies and processes and train their organizational workforce to focus on customer challenges. From my business sense, which I've had in the past 2 decades, it is very, very important that customer focus is the primary thing for us. Revenues will automatically come in if the customer is satisfied. And agile organization will further bring efficiency and optimization to proactively seize the emerging opportunities and create meaningful impact for societies to prosper. The next, which is very important in nowadays, now we are doing virtual webinars, we are meeting each other. I think it was very difficult that we could meet Mr. Balaji, Papia, Farad, and Manu at the same time. Also Meenakshi, who is sitting down south. So digital transformation, very, very important, should be aimed at creating holistic capabilities to leverage the possibilities and opportunities that new digital age technology presents. This will enable to serve the customer better and help evolve the businesses. And lastly, work from home culture, which is being adopted by the organizations globally. And we all thought that it was impossible that we work from home, though many organizations had that in their toolkit. But we thought that as leaders, we wanted all our subordinates to be there. But work from home culture, which is now a trend globally, is also a big relief for everyone. With my experience in recruitment, I feel the following industries and sectors are well poised to leverage the opportunities faster than others to create larger employment opportunities. The first is the digital payments, which Mr. Balaji was also saying. Increased use of smartphones and higher internet penetration will propel this market to growth percentage in strong double digits. We can see that the government across the globe are also taking initiatives to promote digital payments. And India is set to create many employment opportunities through Digital India initiatives. The next very promising industry, which I feel, is healthcare. I think this is one neglected field by everyone. The government was also not focused on healthcare. Very small budgets were allocated to healthcare, and with this crisis setting in, everybody has realized the importance of healthcare. So healthcare comprising of hospitals, medical equipment, diagnostics, pharmaceutical, and telemedicine is poised for a significant growth. We are seeing you can say a shot in the revenue, or people are saying that the industry has come to a standstill, but everybody is waiting for the electives to happen. Everybody is waiting. And also the government is now focused that they will increase their budgets on healthcare, and they should focus there. The next important industry is e-commerce. The future of e-commerce will be very exciting. A lot of new categories will join the basket of e-commerce, making every product or service available online. We are all going virtual, we are ordering everything online, and we are happy that everything is being delivered at home. Very important, online education. I think none of us have ever experienced online education. We are all traditional, and we followed the traditional style of studying, going to school. So education will dramatically be affected post COVID-19, as it will embrace the digital world in the fastest and the largest scales. I think all of us who have kids at home, we are all experiencing that. All schools have gone online, every educational mode is online, and educational institute will come of age, and traditional teaching standards will become a thing of past. So this is a very important industry which will come in the limelight, and lot of job opportunities will be created there. The next is insurance. The insurance, which was not given any weightage, will become relevant and important as the society will become more conscious about health, natural calamities, epidemics, and the need for social security. Insurance company will be seen as service providers as opposed to the entities that issued insurance policies. So we all people who thought that we don't need medical insurance, now everybody is trying to get a medical insurance. God forbid if they have COVID-19, there will be a need that they get admitted to hospitals, and the insurance will come into play then. The last, which I feel will be the logistics. Most industries and companies are built around delivery models, and post COVID-19, uncertainties will bring a large demand for this industry as the dimension of distribution will expand. Increased efforts to promote self-sufficiency will lead to expansion between regions and territories. Hyperlocal expansion with stronger emergence of e-commerce players across multiple categories will play a pivotal role. We will all need creative visions for how our lives are organized and valued in the future, in a world where the role and meaning of work has started to shift. So what I feel is that businesses will be on the front line of workplace as it changes. This will require them to both retool their business process and reevaluate their talent strategies and workforce needs. Carefully considering which individuals are needed, which can be redeployed to other jobs, and where new talent may be required. Many companies are finding it is in their self-interest as well as part of their societal responsibility to train and prepare workers for the new world of work. But individuals too will need to be prepared for a rapidly evolving future. Acquiring new skills that are in demand and resetting intuitions about the world of work will be critical for their own well-being. We cannot just keep blaming the organization, because this is not what the organizations were willing to do. This has just happened, and we as employees also, we need to retrain ourselves, upscale our skills, and be ready for industries which will be evolving in the future. There will be demand for human labor, but workers everywhere will need to rethink traditional notions of where they work, how they work, and what talents and capabilities they bring to that work. Nonetheless, I will say, just as the crisis carries risk, it will also be accompanied by opportunities. When the storm passes and the dust settles, whether the new world will emerge stronger and the post-COVID-19 normal more resilient and sustainable will hinge on our ability to effectively mitigate the risk while harnessing the opportunities that these social psychological effects may present. So I like to conclude by saying that now is the time for us to look after the people who work for us or who have worked for us, When a company steps up at a time like this, it builds loyalty, commitment, and winning teams. So it has to be a mutual relationship between the company, that is the organization, and the employees. Both will benefit, but both have to take care of each other. That's from my side, Papia. Over to you.
Thanks, Sakshi. Thank you so much for your insights. And I think thank you for covering almost every aspect of employee and organization relationship that we talk about. And, like I also liked the insight. And that's what we are looking at. The healthcare will no longer be just a prerogative of the healthcare industry. I think healthcare industry will be driven by each individual need. I think everybody is now running behind a health insurance if they don't already have one. The organizations are really considering health to be a core factor of taking care of their, not only their employees, but employees and their partners, and also the families, right? Similarly, it will become a core agenda, a key agenda for government policy, and it will come towards. So actually, if there is in one industry which is going to see significant growth across, I think it will be a healthcare sector. So, and we need to prepare ourselves for that growth. While we are serving the current needs, there's a huge opportunity that lies us. So now I will like to call Manu, who has really, really different kind of thoughts and insights. And Manu, I'm also, looking at the different perspective that we discussed around saying that there will be more demand of healthcare, professionals than the supply, right? That's a different perspective that you had brought in. And I also realized that there are lots of questions around what will happen to the healthcare jobs. And so really looking forward to, your thoughts around the same. Over to you, Manu. Manu, you are on mute.
So, Papia, I would say the esteemed panel has in fact covered all the leadership skills which would be required in a crisis situation. A couple of them from experience and seeing on-ground things, I would like to add by just a few words is, one is the leadership always had humility. Now, this humility factor has come into prominence. The leaders who have shown humility on the ground, on the shop floor, or I can say anywhere in a workplace environment, they have been able to motivate the teams. So humility has been one of the critical factors. Another factor is, in this COVID scenario, we have seen a flow of over information. We have seen information flowing from every single angle. We have not been able to sieve through and find which is true and which is a false one. So for a leader, it has become very important to help to screen this information and ensure reliable and transparent communication goes down to his team and they are able to act upon it. So what I would say is reliable and transparent communication is a key factor for the leadership today. So as we say, COVID has been a test for all the industries, everybody, human beings. The fact is, for the healthcare industry or the hospital industry, I would like to say, we started thinking about COVID much earlier than anybody else. We started preparing for it. But once it hit, we never knew that it is going to be that severe. So in this entire severity, I would say things that helped us, and you mentioned it in a very subtle manner, has been the telecom bandwidth availability in the country today. A lot of things that made the healthcare professionals able to deliver care has been riding on the telecom bandwidth. From the virtual consultations to the virtual, teams of doctors treating patients, from ICU care management, all this network has been built on the existing telecom facilities which were available. I would have shivers down my spine if I think if this thing would have happened 5 years back or 10 years back, what it would have meant to us. where doctors would not have been able to talk to each other, provide real-time data. Imagine if protocols would have changed in US, within next 24 hours, they would be implemented in other countries. So this has all been brought about with the speed of communication. So that has been one of the key things. Now, coming down to which you would say what healthcare is going to look like going forward. There is going to be a huge change in the consumption pattern of healthcare. So consumption pattern would be regarding how we end up using the healthcare facilities available to us. It was all about touch thing. This has disappeared. This has disappeared. So this has disappeared from the perspective that virtual consultations are the new normal today, and they are going to stay. Telemedicine was there for a long time, but it never saw the importance. Within this 2-3 months, this has changed to an aspect that the growth in teleconsults has been in last 4 months in India only to the tune of 200%. So this
So, Papia, I think there is some problem on the network. Papia, you are on mute.
I'm saying just now he praised the network, and that is what happens.
Yeah. So if you can ask the questions, because we only have 10 minutes left, and then we have to close down. And there are a lot of questions which are coming.
Actually, Gaurav, most of the questions that I see over here that have been covered. One of the questions that I would put in, to you, Balaji. The question was more around, how do we see the revenues coming back? How do we predict that revenues? And it was coming mainly from healthcare sector, but I do feel that it can be from anywhere. That how do you see revenue and businesses shaping back as we go ahead on the year?
No, so very relevant.
Yeah, Balaji, you completed. Manu, are you back?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I can't see you guys.
We
Why
can't
don't we
see you.
let's finish Manu's thoughts, and then I'll
No, you carry on. I'll just add on. I'm just trying to get the video and the audio back.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, so I'm sorry. So I think there is muted sentiment, but overall, if you look at it, whether it's a V shape, whether it's a U shaped recovery, is just a time shift. But the fact is that growth is inevitable, and the opportunities that we have, even in the future, are no less than they were, say, 6 months ago. It's about making sure we do all the things that we need to do, the good practices that we put in place to survive today, survive for the next few quarters, so that we are also in a position to thrive when the situation changes. So and as I said, we and you is only shift in time, but the fact is there is an upward curve coming. And for any reason, if there are some parts of the country or the world that we believe, are going to have an L-shaped situation, then it's all the more important for us to lend a helping hand with the learnings that we have from the good parts. So if India does better than some other countries, it's truly India's duty to make sure that those other countries can also benefit from whatever are our learnings, which allow us to make a faster recovery. Because this is an interlinked world, and whether we like it or not, what happens in some part of the world, as we've learned the hard way from a small place called Wuhan, is going to affect the rest of the world. So do not for the moment underestimate something happening in so-called faraway Beirut or faraway Libya or whatever. Yeah. So our responsibility has become a lot more to stay engaged and and resolve things before they become bigger than they ought to.
Yeah, actually, Balaji, you touched upon a very important point of it is almost connected world now. We can't really say that we are completely, safer because it doesn't touch us anymore. So it is even, something happens in your neighborhood or afar off in other country. And it is also true for the industries, right? While we saw the hospitality industry, coming into the brunt of COVID and facing maximum, I was really inspired to see that how that industry geared up to help others, right?
Yeah. So Indian Hotels was a classic case you and I discussed, Papia. They opened their hotels to the staff and to the patients. I think that was a fantastic thing, right? So
yeah, even in the worst of
Another,
situation, their cooking was on because they were supplying food to the healthcare workers, and they said that this is something that we can do. And everybody asking that question, what can we possibly do, and really do it? Even the Zomatos of the world providing groceries and getting the fund collections done. So we have seen the picture of connected world coming to you. Gaurav, you had a point over there.
Yeah, so Papia, there are a lot of questions coming, and if you allow me, I can just do a rapid round so that in next 5 minutes we can complete them. Otherwise, my network will complain a lot. So the one question is basically from Swadesh. He's asking about, so Mr. Farat, this question goes to you. He's asking about the patient confidence. When will we be able to bring the patient confidence back? Because the whole industry is dependent on elective procedures. And right now there is a lot of challenge on this. So your views, sir.
Yeah, it is a tough call. Basically, the elective surgery and the planned surgery will take some time. But I got some information that the OPD is started now. Even doctors started seeing the patients also. And I think in Delhi, which is coming very fast, the recovery rate is very, very good, and the cases also going down. Delhi, I've seen doctors started meeting. Now they are giving appointments also. And earlier they were doing all the virtual treatment and everything on WhatsApp and other. But this elective surgery and the planned surgery and the full operation of hospitals will take some time. But at the moment, it is difficult call to tell that when it will be started. And one more fear is also there in the general population that they have a psychosis. They have fear when they will visit the hospital, they will get infected because of the some issues and all, which is already reported. And many cases reported when in initial case when this COVID started in India, and many patients got infected because of the surgery that has given a very wrong impression on this area. So I think it will take some time. It will take some time.
Thanks. So Manu, your rapid fire question, what about the second wave? I know we are not completely out from the first wave, but what about the second wave?
So I always ask a question, has anybody seen a second wave or the end of the first wave? People have spoken about 1918 that there was a second wave. I want to ask how many people of us were there in 1918 to see the second wave? So all that we are talking about is from a time even our forefathers weren't there. So it is just, sir, I'll be very clear on this. It's just a statistical model that people are showing us. It's like what we say, dengue. There are waves of dengue. Come rains, dengue comes. There are not waves. It's just a phase where the cases dip. And I always take a peculiar example of Delhi. What is the reason for the cases went up and they started going down? Delhi has started operating in closed circles. What I mean by the closed circle is there will be a group of 20, 30, 10, 40, 50 people, business guys or friends or families who started building their relationships back and started their lives back. So if one person got infected, the entire circle got infected. So all those people are now infected and over with the COVID. Now these circles stopped overlapping. These circles of people stopped overlapping. Now what you say is second wave is when these circles start interacting back would that be a second wave? When these circles have cross connections coming back, would that be a second wave? I'm very clearly say we should be prepared to face whatever comes or whatever gets thrown at us, rather than try to predict when and where the second wave is going to be coming. Many people, politicians and others, I always mention, please refrain from saying, I have done well. Look at the states who have said, we have done well. Goa went ahead and opened all its clubs, hotels and all. And in fact, advertised, please come and stay with us. What has happened to them? Uttarakhand. And I always say US and UK, they not only made movies about the pandemics, they had different scenarios played out what's going to happen in a pandemic. They were left, future gazing as to what happened. I sometimes say the US government should have gone ahead and watched the movie Pandemic. That would have been. So this, what the thing about second wave, let's not debate the timing of it. Let's see how we are prepared to face it. It comes after a month or 6 months.
What you are trying to say is, I think we have to be very cautious. We have to be alert, not only about the second wave, but Wuhan, Wuhan, or whatever Wuhans are there in the world.
Whatever it throws towards us.
Yeah. So I think so last question from Indrani, I think very important question. And this question, I think goes to Balaji and Papia, and then maybe Sakshi can also talk about it. How do we balance empathy and purpose with harsh reality of financial sustainability? It is very easy to say that we have to show compassionate capitalism. It is also very easy to say that, okay, we have to be very compassionate to our employees, but how do we actually do it, balancing the financial targets also? So Balaji, you, and then Papia and Sakshi, and maybe Farhat and Manu, everybody can just give their wisdom on this. And with this, we will end then.
I think it's an excellent question, and I try to answer it very briefly in the chat as well. See, it starts with the leaders and the leadership team. In the end, you've got to fight as hard as you possibly can to avoid those tough questions on parting with group of employees or partners. If that means going and renegotiating with the lenders, so be it. There's no loss of face in going and telling the lenders, I'm sorry, I will not pay you this quarter. I need a moratorium. There's no shame in going and telling the government that you need to step in and do what is right, because if not, these are consequences. So unless we are engaged with those larger networks that can actually help us get out of the situation, it's going to be tougher. If it means that you need to then find some solutions with partners who are the suppliers themselves and saying, guys, you know what, 2 महीने के लिए छोड़ दो, 20 साल से मैंने आपको पैसे टाइम पे दिए हैं, अब मैं नहीं दूंगा, क्योंकि अगर देने का मतलब ये है that I'll have to let go of people, and people are my strength. Those are honest efforts that got to be made. If we believe that it is absolutely impossible and the only way out is then to deal with that situation of letting go of people or partners in order to save the ship, so to say, because in the end, the organization is more important than me, myself, as a leader or anybody else. Then make sure that you have done it with humanness, which is to say you give them not just material support, but the emotional support to make them land on the other side, as if it was you. If you are on the other side, what is the treatment that you expect to get is the treatment that you need to give it.
Excellent. Papia, very brief, your input.
Very difficult, very difficult question, because that is something that is in everybody's mind that is going on. I would say that empathy is also delivered through what we do, right? What decisions as an organization we make. So for example, one of the things that came for us when we started looking at, while our employees had a very good medical coverage or hospitalization insurance, our partners didn't have. And when we are expecting them to go in the field and work for us, it was inhumane in our mind. So what we did is that we covered all the partner employees, right? And we ensured that everything happens to you or your family, we will take care, right? When we asked our network engineers, our sales to go into the market, we also ensured that if anything, God forbid, anything happened, they will be the first one to get tested, and their recovery, we will do everything to get it, because we will ensure that they have a bed in the hospital and their families are quarantined at our cost, right? And we will ensure that. Trust me, we had ambulances running, to ensure that our people get the first. We have gone ahead and we had a scenario where we had to do the last rites of the parents, because the whole family was infected and the son was not allowed to get out because he was COVID positive in Mumbai. And that family coming and saying that Airtel is family and you can go ahead and please do the last rites. And it's a trust building. It's a trust building where every leader knows I will do everything to keep you safe, and what we are together over there, with you, kind of a situation.
Excellent points, Papia. Thanks for that. And Bharat, over to you. In very brief, can you just let us know?
Yes, empathy is very, very important subject nowadays, actually. And it's a part of resilience leadership, and you have to win the trust and safety in the team. And I think the future of work will be the behavioral science, which will be more important to bring people together, and empathy will play a very important role. As we are intelligent, but I think we should have emotional intelligence also, which is very, very important in today's world. That's why we cannot ignore the importance of empathy.
Thanks a lot. Sakshi, over to you.
Yeah, what I feel is there are four very important points. The first thing is we should communicate openly. So many leaders assume that if they admit that the company is facing some turbulence, it may scare away the best of the employees. But I think instead of forcing our employees to take a second guess, it is very important that we communicate very openly to them. The second point, which I feel, is share the pain. The leader should also walk the talk. If it is better that it is important that the leaders should also take a salary cut along with the junior employees, because if leaders take a cut, that will save a lot of employees from being laid off, or you can say from some deduction in their salaries. Then I feel the next is consider crowdsourcing ideas with employees. Everybody should be part of the team. Employees should be able to voice their opinions and their ideas. And the last is we should review all the option, even the least conventional ones, before laying off the employees. As Mr. Balaji also said, that try and source every option, talk to vendors, provide options to employees for 4-day working or take their paid leaves or something like that, rather than just going and doing a layoff. And finally, as I always say, and I am really fascinated by this saying, is have ice in the belly, which is very important for the leadership team. To have ice in the belly, this shall pass too, which is very important.
Excellent point, Sakshi. Ice in the belly. So last word goes to Manu.
So
Manu,
I would just like to add one line to what Mr. Balaji was saying. If it comes to the tough decision of sending people away, one thing we should sit back and think is, how can we reskill those people? In India, we have seen, right from being a zero PPE manufacturer country, today we are exporting. What? It's our capability. If we all get together to start think how can we reskill, even if we can reskill 40% of those people whom we are laying off, it's going to be a tremendous achievement. And believe me, we can do it. We just have to get down to think, how can we reskill that set of people?
I think this is again the last point which Manu you are making is excellent point. Even Sakshi in her presentation was saying 375 million people can again get jobs if they can reskill themselves to the new normal, the opportunities in the new normal. So I think with this we end the session. We are very thankful to all our esteemed panelists who were very kind enough for sharing their wealth of knowledge on this weekend. And we are also very thankful to all our network members that they were taken out time in this difficult time and they were very keen for learning. So thanks a lot.
Thank
and
you.
all the best.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you.
Very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
A good weekend.
Thank you.